Welcome to online class. I welcome my students of Sayabiti Society High School, Gajipur. And today I am going to discuss about transformation of sentence from active to passive. And today I will discuss this class for class 8 students. And let's go to board. And today I am going to discuss about how to change the sentence from active to passive for class 8. I have written 4 points here. And first, before changing a sentence from active to passive, we have to know the structure of a sentence. The structure of the sentence. The auxiliary verb of the sentence, the subject and object of the sentence, the past participle of the main verb. And these structures, these points are much more important for every students. And first, I have to point out the subject, then auxiliary verb, then main verb, and then object. And what is the structure? Now, see, and if you find a sentence, and you have to identify first subject, auxiliary verb, main verb, and object. For an example, and this is a sentence. Here, I is subject, am is an auxiliary verb, do is main verb, and this word is object. And this is a sentence. This way, you have to identify first. And if you do not identify the subject, the auxiliary verb, the main verb, the object, and it is quite impossible to change a sentence from active to passive. Now, what is the formula? What is the structure of a sentence to change active to passive? Now I am showing you. First, the object of the sentence. Then the auxiliary verb of the voice, then the past participle of the main verb of the sentence. Then you have to write a by, then the object of the subject. You see, first you have to write the object of the sentence. Then you have to write the auxiliary verb of the voice. Then the past participle of the main verb of the sentence, and then you have to write by, then object of the sentence. If you find any extension, and you have to add this extension. Now I am going to change a sentence from active to passive. Here I am doing this work. Here this is subject, am is auxiliary verb, do is main verb, and this word is object. Now I am going to the structure of the voice. Here you see the object of the sentence. Here, this work is the object of the sentence. Now you have to write here first this work, then the auxiliary verb of the voice. And here the auxiliary verb is am. And if you find any auxiliary verb am, is, or are, and then when you will change this sentence from active to passive, then we have to write am being, is being, or are being. But here, in case of I, for here, I have written am. But in case of this work, you have to write this work is being. Is being. Because if you find an auxiliary verb am, is, or are, you have to write am being, is being, and or are being in case of changing this sentence from active to passive. Now first you have to write the object here, and then you have to write the auxiliary verb of the voice. Then you have to write the past participle of the main verb of the sentence. Here, do is the main verb. The past participle of the do is done. Do, did, done. Done. Then you have to write then by, and you this subject of the object. Here, the subject is I. And if you find the subject of the sentence is I, you have to write here me. Okay, now I have completed this sentence from active to passive. The sentence is this work is being done by me. Now, and you have to know the verb. You have to complete sense. You need to gain the complete sense of verb. And a verb may remain in three positions: present, past, and past participle. So for an example, go is present tense, the past tense of go is went, past participle is gone. And if you don't understand the past participle or past tense or present tense of a verb, and it is quite impossible to complete a sentence, to change a sentence from active to passive. And you have to know. And you have to know also the object of the subject. Now I'm going to board again. The object of the subject. Now, if you find I, then you have to change it me. And you have to find it he, and you have to write him. In case of she, you have to write her. In case of we, you have to write us. And you have to write they. And you have to write them. If you find any name, Rohim, Korim, etc., and you have to write the name, same name. And you have to memorize, or you have to remember these things. This is very essential for changing a sentence from active to passive. And now I am showing another important thing about this changing sentence. Now I am writing another sentence. You see, Rohim broke the pen yesterday. And if you go to the structure of the sentence, you see Rohim is subject. But generally, an auxiliary verb takes place after the subject. But here, there is no auxiliary verb. Rohim broke. Break, broke, broken. This is the past form of a verb break. The pen, this is object, and yesterday is extension. And if you find the past form before past form after the subject, and you have to understand, and here after the subject the auxiliary verb is did. And in case of did, the auxiliary verb of the voice will be was or were. As like as this, you see, he reads a book. You read a book. And you see, and he is subject and you is subject. And there is no auxiliary verb here. And there is no auxiliary verb here. But there is a sentence is always incomplete without an auxiliary verb. Here you see, and you find, and he and read, and s added after reads. And if you find s or es after the subject, after the main verb, and here, and the auxiliary verb will be does in another sense. And if you, in case of third person singular number in present indefinite tense, generally a s or es will be added after the main verb. And so, though here the auxiliary verb is does. You see, you read, and you is subject and read is main verb. And here the read is present tense, and if you find the main verb present tense after the subject here, and the auxiliary verb will be do. In case of do and does, if you want to change this sentence, the auxiliary verb of the voice will be am, is, or are. Now I am showing a sentence without any auxiliary verb like did, does, or do. Rahim broke the pen yesterday. Now, Rahim is subject. Here, broke. This is the past tense. Now, here auxiliary verb is did. The pen is object. According to structure of the voice, and now I have to write the object first. The pen. In case of auxiliary verb did, the auxiliary verb of the voice will be was or were. Here, the pen was, because the pen is singular. And if you find the plural, then you have to write this here where. The pen was broken. Always, in case of changing active to passive, always you have to write the past participle form of main verb of the given sentence. The pen was broken by Rahim yesterday. As like as this, he reads a book. Now, you see, third person singular number, this is present tense, and as or es. And here, the auxiliary verb will be does. So, you have to write a book is object. You have to write here a book. In case of do or does, and you have to write am, is, or are in case of voice. In case of changing sentence from active to passive, you hear the auxiliary verb is does, and you have to write a book is. A book is read. A book is read by him. Same as you eat rice. You see, you is subject, it is present tense. And if you find a present tense after subject, here the auxiliary verb will be do. In case of do or does, the auxiliary verb of the voice will be am, is, are. Here, rice is object. And you have to write here, first object, rice is eaten by you. There are many kinds of sentence where you will find auxiliary verb. But in case of past indefinite and present indefinite, you will not find any auxiliary verb. You have to understand the auxiliary verb. If you find the past tense after the sentence, this is past indefinite tense. In case of this, you have to write the auxiliary verb of the voice was or were. And in case of do or does, I mean in present indefinite, and you have to write am, is or are instead of do or does. This is very critical, and most of the students fail to understand this do, does or did. And if you find any auxiliary verb in the given sentence, it will be easy. And now I am showing you shortly to memorize the auxiliary verbs of how you will write in your exam paper. And if you find do or does, and you have to write am, is, are. And if you find a sentence with auxiliary verb did, and if you want to change this sentence to active to passive, and you have the auxiliary verb will be was or were. If you find have or has, you have to write have been or has been. And if you find am, is or are, you have to write am being, is being or are being. If you get the auxiliary verb had, you have to write had been. If you find was or were, you have to write was being and were being. And if you find shall or will, and you have to write shall be or will be. And if you find some verbs can, could, may, might, should, must, and you have to add only be. If you find can, you have to write can be. In case of may be, should be, would be, could be, must be. And these are the auxiliary verbs will be given in the sentences. And if you find these auxiliary verb in the sentences, you have to write these auxiliary verb in the sentences from active to passive. But you have to memorize it. Am, is or are. Am is am being, is being, are being. But where you will write am being, is being, are being. If you say I am being, is, if you find a singular thing, is being, and if you find plural thing, and you have to write are being. Same as was or were. If you find any singular, and you will write was being, and if you find any plural, and you will write were being. And now you have to memorize these all things to change the sentence from active to passive. And I hope and believe the students of class 8 will be much more grateful from this class. And if any question, you can contact online. And I think that day after tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I will take more and more classes for you. And I hope and believe that it will be helpful for you. And thank you very much.